Ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Greetings and welcome to Georgian Crossroads and beyond. And today we are going not that far, but far beyond the normal Georgian scenery that I've dedicated most of this channel to. We're going to spend 2 weeks in Florence, and I'm going to divide this up into two parts, the first half and the second, basically each week. Not only that, this is connected to my other channels. So on Gravity from Above, which is more documents about the arts, I go into a conversation I had with a Florentine mask maker, Agostino Desi, and his daughter, Alice. And I also look for Pinocchio, and Pinocchio actually comes from Florence. So besides the Renaissance and everything connected with that, you can learn more about Pinocchio over there. I'll put the links below and at the end and maybe above, somewhere. They'll all be around. Look for the links. And then on my main channel, which is for ideas, called The Anadromist, I have a special edition called Florentine Reflections. And this is more of my actual kind of sociological, philosophical reflections as I'm going through museums and walking the streets of Florence and finding Florentine mask makers. These two here on this channel will be more of a show and tell. What I did on my vacation. I'm not going to get too much into explaining what I saw, hints to send you to the other video, but this will be more of an introduction to travel in a different mode. Notice I said I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Florence, which is very strange. People these days are encouraged to spend 3 days there, 2 days. You know, there's videos, how to spend 1 day in Florence. But that's not what we're doing here. We are going for a much deeper experience. And in fact, right before I left, I said, why didn't I make it 3 weeks? And I easily could have, because there's so much there. I have no idea how anyone could see Florence in 2, 3, 4 days. I mean, there's just so much. The mystery, though, is how to see Florence without the hordes of tourists. And I think I've succeeded in figuring that one out. And I'll share it with you. So let's begin our journey on the steps of Vake Park here in Tbilisi as I am rehearsing to climb the 463 steps of the Duomo in Florence by going up to the World War II monument, Victory Monument, here in Vake Park in Tbilisi, Georgia. You are going to hear me seriously out of shape in just a moment here. I tried to climb these steps as quickly as possible. I did stop a few times, but it proved to be still not quite good enough.
No, I'm not going to go all the way up to the statue. I'll save that for the last trip. What is that? Oh, I see. It's a flame place for putting an eternal flame, which has evidently gone out. Okay. Stop. We've made it for today.
So, I had to wake up at 3 a.m. for a 5 a.m. flight on Lufthansa. Do note that dog in the Tbilisi airport. That's inside the airport, not outside. Typical Tbilisi. Well, got off to an early start. Sun hadn't really crested the horizon yet. It was raining when I got to Frankfurt. I had 2 stops. Frankfurt, and then from Frankfurt to Munich, which was basically uneventful. I did get a little wet because we had to go outdoors to walk up a flight of steps. And then we got on to Dolomiti, which is named, of course, after the Dolomite Alps in Italy. And we had a pretty good morning. Sun starting to come out. We had clouds and sun poking their way through, kind of a wet ground. Perfect weather for photography later. We've passed the Alps. Where are those, the Alps? We're just passing the Alps. And we will be coming to the cities of Tuscany, the ancient home of the Etruscans. And then we come to the rather fertile land of the Tuscans as we are preparing to arrive at the Florence airport. Now, I must say that this is probably one of the easiest trips for me to take, because I just go from Tbilisi to Tuscany, a little bit of annoyance having to get out of the plane. It was only one stop on the way back. So here we are on the outskirts of Florence, landing at the airport. And we just get out, and the tram is literally, you walk out of the rather small airport, and there's the tram. And you just get on and go inland. And you get a little glimpse of the parts of the city you didn't come to see, but this is the normal part for most people. And then when I arrived at the train station, I then had a simple 2-block walk to my pension hotel. What is a hotel? What is a pension? What makes these any different than dorms? I'll show you what my room looked like. It's rather pathetic. The bane of my existence. It works, but it takes some real twisting. Anyway, this is the funky room I am in. I think this room has probably been here since the Middle Ages. Why is it so tall? Oh, there's a closet. I didn't see this before. I can put some stuff in that. Here is the real bane of my existence. This heater, which I got them to turn it down a little bit, but I'm going to have to leave this window open at night and hope there are no mosquitoes. And then there's this fascinating shrine with a cross going down to its base, a few Vespas and other motor scooters. So in the late afternoon, I decided to go out for a walk, see central Florence for the first time. No real expectations. I figured there'd be old buildings and streets. There were some fancy stores, and here was the Duomo and the Campanile, which is my first time seeing them in person. But of course, I wasn't alone, and there were hordes of people still, and evidently would be that way until Epiphany was over. But I was going to find my friend Gianluca at the Paperback Exchange. And then I'll take you with me on an evening walk.
wasn't like a full light. Bad light. It was fine. We fixed it.
So the next morning I got up. I liked the view out of the window better than the actual hotel room with its heater next to my head, which I had to keep putting my pillows next to so I didn't feel it because I just couldn't turn it off. Leave this spiral staircase and go out onto the streets where here's a hotel, obviously fancier than mine, which had decorations for Christmas still up. And what I was told was that they don't take the decorations for Christmas down until after Epiphany. So that was fine for me. Have a chance to see a little bit of Christmassy Florence. These all look like great little leather shops until you realize a lot of them are faked in many ways. And to find a real good leather store in Florence is a little harder than you would imagine. But that's another tale. So inside the Mercato Centrale, Central Market, I stopped and had a cappuccino from this guy here. And I normally don't drink coffee, but you know what? I'm in Italy, I'm having a cappuccino, and it has to be before noon. And then there were all sorts of things, truffles and pistachio paste, and of course lots of vegetables and dried fruit, and just endless cured meats and, amazing stuff. Total temptation to buy as much as possible. But I also realized, okay, I got to watch myself on any sort of liquid thing for the airport. I don't have any place to really bring anything. I did have, however, a makeshift idea for a refrigerator. And I like these little outdoor counters. You just sit there. They're not outdoor. This is all under the Mercato. This guy was great. And he let me taste different things. I ended up buying a truffle from him. But on this day, I bought this thing. I don't know what it is. It was made with shrimp and I think potatoes and maybe some other kind of meal in there. Absolutely brilliant. And then I had the lampredotto in a bowl that I bought from this guy, Lamprodoto, is the fourth stomach of the cow, and it was wonderful. If you don't like tripe, you wouldn't get into it. Some liquids, I really like the quinoto there. I discovered that kind of a lime thing, and this is where I kept my goods between the shutters and the window, and it keeps it nice and cool. And of course, Florence wasn't frozen at all. Okay, well, let's get back out on the road. Now, one of the things I've learned, especially doing this kind of travel, which is to go for 2 weeks and just spend time at one place, I'm not in a mad dash to see everything. You know, the Uffizi Gallery is going to wait for me, and I'm not going to see it till the second week. Same with the Statue of David. What I'm doing now is just getting an idea of the feel of the city. That's the best way to start. Don't go hunting down the big attractions. I don't understand this kind of tourism that it's almost like a psychosis people have when they travel now, that they have to see everything immediately. Go walk, see sculptures that no one has told you about. Just get a feel for the city. Me, I was also waiting for Epiphany to be over when I would do my major explorations, and actually that turned out to be right. But, you know, just see what's on the walls. Walking around, there are lines for the Duomo and the Campanile, and I didn't go through all of that. I'd done homework ahead of time, as they tell you to do. And one of the things I discovered, by waiting and buying tickets in advance, it's so simple, and yet people don't do this. People like to be spontaneous, which leaves them waiting in lines for something to happen. And then maybe they won't even get in. Rather, what I learned is to keep your eyes open. Look at the doors and the wall and the background. That's important. Waiting in line isn't important. St. Francis. And the reason St. Francis is here with this nativity scene is because St. Francis, not far from Florence, invented the nativity scene. Prior to that, people didn't set up these little manger scenes or the creche or what different countries call them. And of course, there is the dreaded curse of the tourist object. I don't know who is going to buy these. I can kind of guess, but I don't want to. All right. So the next day, time to go out into the world, and I'm looking for the Archaeological Museum. I decided the Archaeological Museum was the place to start. Evidently, this was the guy who started it. I don't remember his name, forgive me. But they had Egyptian artifacts, and I thought to myself, let's look at those. I'm not here to see Egyptian artifacts. I mean, I'm in Florence. But since my eyes are fresh, and your eyes do get tired from seeing too many artworks, there's even a condition labeled the Florentine syndrome or something. But what I noticed is how all of these works reflect the culture, like this strange creature. It's like Lovecraftian. It's from the Hellenistic period. It's still Egyptian. And these are after Christ. You start getting these really beautiful paintings of real human people. Then you come to the Etruscans, who are quite a mysterious people. The Romans took over their culture and borrowed many aspects, including gladiatorial combats and a very strange sexual ethos. But these people were seriously, we don't understand a lot of them because they didn't write anything down. And so all of these images come to us like fresh mysteries. I love this stuff. What's that figure on the extreme right there? And a little... There's just so much. I don't want to spend all of this just talking about each of these. I'd spend a little bit of more time talking about this over on my Anadromous channel, trying to understand the meaning of these things. Now we're in the Palazzo Davanzati, which is a palace. But what's great about this is it shows you, this is actually a medieval interior, and it shows you the way people lived in the Middle Ages. Some of their artwork, probably better than what you've got on your walls. Well, it was a palace, so. And just looking around, there was a Renaissance chamber up above, and I just didn't have the time to go through it that day, or the money. I think they charged an extra 10 euros for it, but this was good enough. I wasn't ready to skip into the Renaissance yet. A part of my rationale for traveling was to see the older stuff first. So here I am in the Middle Ages. And the Middle Ages does not look nearly as bleak. It's not the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages is basically before, 900 AD. Look down into this place where the water comes up from. And then once the water is brought up, it goes down. This is the drain, the sewage system. Goes way down. It's made out of ceramics. Look how far it goes down. Just fascinating. Great engineering. I found these weird little reliefs down at the bottom of the palazzo. And a lot of them had to do with people being overcome by, in that case, look at that death angel. That's just fascinating. Here's another one. Look at this. Now look at the guy hanging up just like torsos from a tree. And in the tree is made up of all these death images. I don't know the whole story. I did read a little bit of it, but I'm more interested in just the way the images feel. And we often don't realize this, but there is a dark side to the Renaissance, dark just in the imagery and such. I mean, if you just really go back and look at these, some fascinating stuff. Now, this one's really weird. So here we are in a bookstore, big Italian bookstore. The name escapes me at the moment. Someone can fill it in for me below, or maybe I'll just write it here. And then there's a set of seats up above, like you could watch, because we're in an old movie theater, and what they're doing is showing Home Alone in the middle of the day. Here's the Christmas imagery. And this is some stuff I found on the side of the wall. And that's all right next to each other. Okay, if you're going to do cute, let's have some darkness next to it too. Give it a little change in flavor. Well, what I did this day is I met up with my friends. They came over to my house early in the morning. They came down from a couple of brothers, Jacopo and Filippo, came down from Milano and Torino, respectively. And this was interesting. And I was wondering, was that just found inside the cement of the wall, or did someone carve that there later? It didn't have a head. I didn't know. But I love just finding random details. Tbilisi, by the way, is filled with these random details. And there's Jacopo and Filippo and yours truly. And we popped our head into a nice place where, hey, this would make a nice background, wouldn't it? We actually had excellent conversations as we walked through the city, talking about the Renaissance and Italy, but also the future, technology, all of these things. A great place for doing this.
Certainly in America, there would be no city, not New York, not San Francisco, not any suburb, where this wouldn't be the best building in it. Here,
it's on the side of the road.
Yeah, it's just like whatever.
And then I went to the Bargello Museum. Museo Nazionale Bargello, something like that. Which, this was a real Renaissance palace. This was the place they keep a lot of really important statues. Unfortunately, one of the most important statues was either hidden, or I think it looked like the room was closed, and that was Donatello's David, which I didn't see, which would be there. I've been becoming more interested in statuary over the last few years. Part of it is, I think, everything I see in Prague. Prague has probably the most interesting statues of anywhere I've ever been, because they're so strange. There are some strange statues here as well, but what's also fascinating is that these statues, you really get this idea. Now, one of the interesting things about living in Tbilisi, there are statues here, of course, as well, and they're from a later period, because for many, many years, the Orthodox had a prohibition against statuary. They still do in church, though they could make bas-relief, partly coming out from the wall, but actual statues, they were forbidden. And I can kind of understand why. When you start looking at statues, unlike any other art form, they completely are three-dimensional depictions of human beings, and of course other things, birds, animals, and you name it. And I find there's something very ghostly about them. There's an interesting book I read a couple of years ago called The Dream of the Moving Statue. And we feel that. And I think they are on a continuum with mannequins and puppets and all of these things. They are at if one had a spiky wheel, they would be one end of a spectrum of these things. And they are so much different than the painted image. And Florence is in many ways one of the capitals of statuary, along with Rome, along with Prague, and I'm sure there are quite a few other places. Do you know any of the great statue cities? And then there's this Roman woman here, very realistic. And here's a Mercury. And here is an interesting statue, basically a good and evil statue. And the man represents evil, the woman represents good. I can't remember this was a myth, but I can't remember the actual myth. But it's something like truth conquering lies is what it is as an allegory. And I just find it fascinating. I've seen other variations on these themes as well as I've traveled. There's a really great one in the Victoria Museum in London. And then there's this stuff. This was part of a funerary thing, and this was really dark. It looked like the eyeballs inside of these things moved, but the goat dragon kind of image, the skull. Now, this wasn't ancient Roman. This was Renaissance, and this is what I mean by there's really dark parts of the Renaissance as far as depiction. Like this statue here, which is just this chaotic jumble of images. There's horses, there's a battle scene, whereas this one's more peaceful. And then you have these contrasting images here. And this is the earliest Madonna and Child by Michelangelo. And I was really happy to find that. The Bargello, if you go to Florence, you must go there. And it's not nearly as crowded as some of the other places. There's the Perseus holding it looks like Jason holding the golden fleece. I would have to study that a bit more. Peacock, some kind of, was it a raven or a crow, or is it hard to tell. Anyway, part of what makes this trip work is that I'm not there during the busy season. So one of the things I wasn't expecting to find at all, which I found in the Bargello. This is all Renaissance era ceramics. Just fascinating. No one had ever really talked to me about Renaissance era pottery and ceramics and dishes and bowls and all of this stuff. Just amazing work. Look at that. That's like abstract. And the images here, also very abstract. What I find interesting is how all of this stuff, all of this ornamentation has disappeared from our lives. Everything is supposed to be very simplistic. And then there are paintings, crucifix with other imagery. This is all again in the Bargello. Just you go through it and it kind of feeds you with all of this imagery. There was this one section here. I love this. This was something worn a bit like, it was for a warrior. But look at the work on here. The bead work is just fascinating. They also had carpets and other things. I love finding bits of texture in clothing. And in part 2, we will come into the fashion part of this tour. But I highly recommend the Bargello. I also highly recommend do not go in the middle of the summer to Florence. Go when they say late November is a great time. They say when I chose in January here is a good time. Look at this. It's like there's no one around. And this is what you want. You want to be able to like, this is actually a very small piece. And I just look at the light on the statues. And these were outdoors. And so's that. That's a real pig there. And you get a bit of fashion. And you know what you get with your fashion? You get philosophy. And think about how that relates to this rather Byzantine-looking image. Finally, it was the day to go and see the Duomo, or rather, hike up the Duomo. And so these are some of the images inside the Duomo looking straight up. I was with my friend Jill, and Jill came down from Ticino, the Italian part of Switzerland. He had arrived the day before, and we ended up going to get bistecca alla Fiorentina with my friend Gianluca at a place he knew which was not a tourist place. But this was work hiking up here. This is what I had prepared for. 463 steps to get to the top. I'm not even there. This is Jill in front of me, and this is the whole roof as we're walking around. Someone trying to squeeze by, and Jill's shoes, and I am huffing and puffing going up this. Just so you know, if you hear me doing that, it's because that's what I'm doing. And all my preparation didn't really help because I couldn't slow down because there were so many people coming up after me. And there's the Campanile. I was going to go up that too, but, I've got a really great view of it, and I'm on top of the Duomo, which is higher. I think I proved my point. Still got it. But I must say, I'm nearly 70 years old. It was work getting up there. But this is Florence down below. I love the tiled roofs of Florence. Who's that? Thanks, Joe. And looking around the hills of Tuscany beyond Florence. What an amazing place. Now, one problem was I spent so much energy getting up there. And, of course, you arrive in a new place. There's Jill looking out. You arrive in a new place filled with tourists, all bringing their germs. And I could tell when I got up there, it was so winded me and left me weakened. You usually get colds and fevers and whatnot when you get weakened. And I was so weakened by it that I picked up a little something and got sick. And I made it home, but I just spent the rest of that day and all of the next day just resting. Poor Joe had to wander around Florence by himself and do some work that he had to do. And then look at all the different ways you can go here. And the point is, which way to go? This is actually outside the window of of hotel room. So there's like, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different directions you can go from this little square. Well, that was the end of part 1. I am sick as a dog, and I'm not now sick as a dog, but I am at the end of this. I had to spend a day not doing a thing, just relaxing in my hotel room. Hotel. The rest of the trip did continue, and we'll meet up again with my friend Jill, although we won't see him, but he will be with me on the first day after my day off. And then we will investigate other museums and sites and mask makers in Florence, Italy. Come back for that. It'll be up very soon. I'm trying to get these up. It'll certainly be up by the end of the week. And while you're waiting, use the links at the end of this to go explore the other videos in the series. And there is a playlist here which will have eventually all 5 of the videos. So go do that. Thank you so much for coming along with me. This is Byrne in Tbilisi, Georgia. And if you want to know more about that, there's lots of other videos here saying, hey, what the Georgians say when they are saying farewell, but they know they'll be back. Droebit, which just means temporarily. We will meet again very soon. Here, rescued from Alaska. This year, my first ever book, 3 Motions. Motions is an old English word for puppet shows. Indeed, there are 3 puppet plays here written by myself for my Alaskan puppetry classes, including my versions of the medieval classic Everyman, cleverly entitled Every Puppet, and even better, my retelling of the Faust legend, updated for the 21st century, also very cleverly, with a special introductory essay on the meaning of puppetry. Now, are these 50-page booklets physically worth the $25 price? No. But this isn't about material possessions. This is about being part of this odd channel and whatever it is we're doing here, trying to understand things. And these little booklets are unique. Each one is numbered and signed by yours truly. When they sell out, they are gone. I will never reprint them. Special deals if you want multiple copies for a production of your own. Just let me know you're doing it. That's $25 for the USA, Canada, Mexico, most of Europe. There may be some corners, like, I don't know, Russia, etc., and might require some extra money, as would Asia, Latin America, and Africa, or Tonga, or Australia probably. I'll have to add another $5 or so, depending on where you're from. But part of the money goes to my assistants who are shipping these from me from their respective American and European locations. Use the links below, PayPal, GoFundMe, and make sure you add the word book, B-O-O-K, book, to let me know this is not just a normal contribution to the channel, which you can still make. This book will not last long. Help me keep the channel alive. I get no other funding except from you, the viewer. I don't get it from YouTube. I don't get sponsorships. It's up to you. If you appreciate what I do on this channel, get a book. It's a great way to remember what this channel was about, and it'll be something unique because they're all signed and numbered.